Mr. Mfume, I want to allow you an opportunity to offer any closing remarks. You and I try and mirror each other, but the distinguished gentleman's recognized.
Well, I want to thank you again, Mr. Chairman, and in their absence, I want to thank members of both sides of the aisle in this committee for their participation today, albeit limited. There's a lot of things going on this week, so they've been in and out, but I thank them. I thank the witnesses again, as I did previously, for their testimony. And, you know, someone once said, if you live long enough, you'll see everything twice. So I recall being here in this body in 1987 as a young member. Ronald Reagan was president. Jim Wright was my Speaker of the House. And there were enormous sets of hearings around something called telework. I can't even begin to tell you how difficult it was defining it in those days, not by the advocates, but by those who didn't want to enter anything new into the concept of work. So looking back through that telescope of time, I've got a little bit of perspective on this. It's amazing, for me at least, that I can be as old as a dinosaur, and here we are still talking about telework. It was great that this was divided, as Mr. Connolly said in referencing your remarks, that what was going on in the pandemic and what is going on now are really two different things. Telework has always been with us. When I say always, I'll go back to 1987. I can't go beyond that. But it's developed over time. And I asked the question about matrix and measurement because, as Mr. Biggs said, at the end of the day, it's really about productivity. Are we producing? And is the federal workforce producing? And the answer is yes, we are. It is our responsibility, I think, to get out of our own minds, no matter whether we're on the left or the right of this, the idea that what was happening during the pandemic in real time, policies being developed almost overnight to make sure that we were getting work done, is not the same thing that's going on now. What's going on now is the basic telework that has always gone on with measurements, real measurements, to look at productivity and to look at the bottom line and then to be able to course correct where necessary. So it was interesting to hear all of you talk about how you identify where there are lapses in that and how you move quickly to straighten that out so that, again, productivity is not severely hampered. I'm hoping, quite frankly, I guess I'm still an optimist, that 25 years from now, 40 years from now, we still won't be on this ledge of telework. And I really don't want for us to do the sort of postmortem on COVID as if that's something that we're trying to figure out. We figured it out. We did it in real time. Did we make some mistakes? Yeah. Did we get it right? Yeah. Is it over with? Hopefully it is. But the question becomes, how do we improve on the concept of telework, which we've been improving on as a government for many, many, many years? I represent Baltimore, and so I'm just 40 miles up the road. There are federal workers all over this small state of Maryland. So I hear and I see and I understand differently, in many respects, the position of those who are teleworking, who are doing their work. And I understood also what we went through during the pandemic. So for the sake of the future and the sake of productivity and the sake of telework, to the extent that we can continue to refine it and define it and make it even more efficient year after year after year, we would have served our country in a way that, for me at least, would be quite satisfying. We're not going backwards. And since we all agree that we are going forward, how do we define that future? Mr. Connolly talked about the wave, and I think, Mr. Dorman, you also did, about this wave of retirements that we're getting ready to get hit with, and how do we go about, Doctor, finding, as you said, ways to attract younger people, and what the real job requirements and what the job market looks like when we juxtapose ourselves against the private sector that understands this and who realizes that their bottom line is profit. Our bottom line is productivity, and they have moved exceedingly fast to create a model that might be good for us to emulate. So I want to, again, thank Chairman Sessions for the time this morning. He and I came into this committee at the beginning of this Congress based on new ratios and a new majority, but we decided together that to the extent that we could find a way in a bipartisan manner to bring issues and to solve problems, we would do that. We both reserve our rights to disagree on things where we may be philosophically opposed, but we realize that finding consensus in government is the fastest and the most effective way to get something done. And so that's what this hearing represents. I thank him again for his leadership of the committee, and I yield back my time. And again, I thank all of you for being with us.
Distinguished gentleman yields back his time. One last point. I don't want to rebut anything Mr. Mfume said, but in 1987, my father served as director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And I recall quite candidly the discussions that took place about that agency, and they felt like they were under the same demand of replacing what would be new FBI agents with agents that retired. I think we're always at this point, or have been since at least 1987 when I started to grow a brain, of recognizing that this country does need its workers. We need the experienced people. We need the new people. I would simply say to you, my side of that balanced equation was, I think it's in everybody's best interest that we pay attention about what we're doing to ourselves, because when somebody stays at home all day, telework, they may not be as prepared for the future that's tomorrow. I want to thank each of you. Mr. Mfume and I are going to walk down. He's going to walk down his side. I'm going to walk down my side. We're going to stick our hand out, and we're going to say to you, thank you very much. Please know this, that I would expect that you will respond back to us in your own way of the metrics and the ways that you look at it, with us as an opportunity to glean what you think is success. Thank you very much.
Would the gentleman yield
Yes,
for
sir.
just a second? And I apologize.
Yes,
I have a statement for the record that was submitted earlier by military spouses.
Without
And
objection.
These spouses belong to employee organizations at the Department of State, the U.S. Agency for International Development, Department of Agriculture, and Department of Veteran Affairs. These are spouses who wanted on the record to talk about and to find a way to encourage the committee to embrace a flexible, adaptable workplace policy which allows military spouses to retain their jobs. So with unanimous consent, I'd like to have it into a record, and I thank the chair for the
Without objection, we'll do that. Mr. Mfume, and I will come down and extend our hand of thanks to you on behalf of your agency and on behalf of the United States Congress, this committee. We have now finished this hearing. Thank you.